Hello BookTube, this is IqraReads and today I'm going to be doing my Victober wrap-up. I've had a great reading experience this month and I started it all off by reading War of the Worlds by H.G. Wells. Now this is a classic book published in December 1897. So how good could this possibly be? Well, it was amazing. This is the book that launched the alien invasion trope. It was the first of its kind and even to this day I think it's one of the best of its kind. I'm going to be reading a paragraph from the beginning of the book. No one would have believed in the last years of the 19th century that human affairs were being watched keenly and closely by intelligence greater than man's and yet as mortal as his own. That as men busied themselves about their affairs, they were scrutinized and studied, perhaps almost as narrowly as a man with a microscope might scrutinize the transient creatures that swarm and multiply in a drop of water. With infinite complacency, men went to and fro over this globe, about their little affairs, serene in their assurance over their empire over matter. No one gave a thought to the older worlds of space as sources of human danger, or thought of them only to dismiss the idea upon life upon them as impossible and implorable. Yet across the gulf of space, minds that are to our minds as ours are those of the beasts that perish. Intellects vast and cool and unsympathetic regard this earth with envious eyes, and slowly and surely draw their plans against us. And early in the 20th century came the great disillusion. What a start. It's brilliant. So this book is narrated by an unnamed man, and through him we see the story unfold. We don't even get a description of him, so I'm assuming H.G. Wells. We don't even get names. No, in fact, nobody's given a name in this book. This might put some people off, but I didn't mind. In fact, I kind of liked it because we focused mainly on the story. There isn't a lot of character development or characters or a big plot, but it's not needed. The book moves fast, and even the slow parts move smoothly. So I give War of the Worlds 5 out of 5. Absolutely brilliant. The next book I read was The Time Machine by H.G. Wells. Obviously, by the title, you know somebody makes a time machine and he goes back. He goes into the future. The future is very bleak. The story overall is not a big story. There's not a lot that happens in it. I would say yes, yes, you should read it. It's good. This was a 3 out of 5. So it's a good book, but we don't get a description of the character, so I'm assuming he looks like H.G. Wells. So that's that book. And the next book I read was The Island of Dr. Moreau by H.G. Wells. By reading this book, I found out 2 things about myself, and that is, first, I don't like reading about animal mutilation, and the second thing is I don't like reading about animal cruelty, and this book has both. I would say that if you have read War of the Worlds, The Time Machine and The Invisible Man, and you just want to read more H.G. Wells, then you should read this book. But if not, then I wouldn't recommend this book. I mean, I say that, but then I still enjoyed parts of it, because the first part of the book was boring and I gave it 2 stars. The second part of the book was horrific. And I gave it 1 star because it was animal mutilation. And the last quarter of the book was really good. It was quite adventurous. It was good. It was it gives you a satisfying ending. And yeah, so that's why I give this book 2.5 stars out of 5. It's still a classic. It's still first of its kind. Genetic engineering. I think Introduction to Genetic Engineering. So yes, 2.5 stars. The next book is The Invisible Man by H.G. Wells. Now I was supposed to have read this as a reread, but I didn't have any time. But I'm still going to do a review on it. This book is this will be an unpopular opinion because A lot of people don't like this book, but I don't care. I love this book. I know the main character is not a hero. In fact, he's the anti-hero. He's actually a villain, but I can't help it. I like this book. Because we go through the book with him, we see the story unfold through his eyes. So when he's cold, we're cold. When he's hungry, we can feel the hunger. So it's just been written so well that you feel sympathy for the bad guy. From the other books, they don't get a description of the main character, but this one actually does, and it's needed for the plot really, because the main character is the Invisible Man is albino, so he has white hair, white eyebrows, and is very pale, and that works into the Invisible Man, because that's how the potion, the chemicals work in his body, because he's albino. Another thing that gets turned invisible is a white cat, so that plays into the scientific storyline of it. So I think it's brilliant, and I give this 5 out of 5 stars, and I definitely recommend everybody to read this book. Another book that I was supposed to read during Victober, but I didn't, is Silas, Marner by George Elliot. Now, I tried my best. Every time I pick this book up and I look at the cover, and there's something strange. There's a dead baby, a dead child in the corner of the book, and kind of put me off reading it, so I didn't. But I think I might try the audio of this book to see if I can get through it that way. So another book I read that blew my mind completely out of the water is Dracula by Bram Stoker. Oh my god, this book is amazing. I loved it. I loved every moment of this book. It was. I thought I wouldn't like this book because it's chunky. I thought it was going to be a lot of information dumping, not much character development, not much character, nothing, just a straight out horror book. But it wasn't. It had so much character depth. Great storyline. The story is told through diary entries, newspaper clippings, and scientific journal. And you think because of that, you would be taken out of the story, or it would be chunky and unreadable. No, it doesn't. It doesn't take you out of the story for a minute. It flows lovely. And it's just great. Yes, some of the dialogue is cheesy and out of date, but you have to forgive it because of the time period it was written in. Some of the times, Van Helsing reminded me of Poirot from the Agatha Christie novels, because of his overall affection and over dramaticism of everything. So I wonder if Agatha Christie was influenced by Van Helsing to write Poirot. But overall, this is a great story. At one point in time, I thought Renfield, the lunatic that lives in the mental asylum, was going to outdo Dracula because of his overall creepiness. Renfield was a great character, and I would recommend you read Dracula just to read about him, because he does some really horrific, creepy stuff. Not violent, but general his behaviour and how his behaviour is documented by the Doctor. It's really good, but obviously nobody outdoes Dracula in the book Dracula, so that doesn't happen. But overall, I love the story. My favourite character is Mina. Love Mina. It's really good. So I recommend Dracula, and 5 out of 5 for Dracula. Brilliant. Another outstanding book I read was Frankenstein. Again, I didn't think I would like this book. I put off reading this book for years because I thought there's no way I could like reading this book. And I was blown away by this book. It's profound. This book is profound. The Frankenstein's monster is he's such a genuine, such a different character. You wouldn't think he would be such a great character. You'd think he would be the ultimate villain, but we see there's a paragraph, there's a section in the middle where we see the world through Frankenstein's monsters, his view, and how he is adjusting to the world and how he's coping, because Victor Frankenstein just abandoned him. We all know that. And I think Victor Frankenstein is, to me, a very unlikable character. He's a child. His behaviour is that of a child, and so I didn't like him. But the monster, Frankenstein's monster, is brilliant. I know he's not the hero. I know he's an anti-hero. I know he's the villain, but you can't help not liking Frankenstein monster. And I gave this book 5 out of 5. And in fact, I see quite a lot of similarities between the Invisible Man and Frankenstein monster, because they're both anti-villains. They're both anti-heroes and they're villains. But it's just the way it's been written, you feel a lot of sympathy for them. So that's my wrap up for Victober. I've had an excellent reading month. I got through a lot of classical literature. One thing I need to tell you before I go is that I found out through my research that Frankenstein is not a Victorian novel, and so that kind of upset me, because I thought because that made me look like a fool in my Victober videos, but because they're always paired together. Dracula and Frankenstein are always paired together, so I assumed that they were written at the same time period. But no, Frankenstein is not a Victorian novel. It was written in 1818, so I just correct myself and apologise for my mistake. And that wraps up my Victober, and thank you very much for listening, and hopefully I'll see you soon. Bye.